Fayetteville, Georgia is a great place to live. Or is it? Hi, I'm Daphne Bousquet with eXp Realty, and I help people from all over the country relocate to Fayetteville and surrounding areas. Now, don't move to Fayetteville, Georgia before you watch this video, because I'm going to share 10 reasons not to move here. Fayetteville is a suburb of Atlanta and is located about 40 minutes south of the city. The airport is only 23 minutes from Fayetteville, and that is a good thing, as we start off with the first reason: jobs. Now, unless you're in the film industry, there are no major employers in Fayetteville. There are no Fortune 500 or even Fortune 1000 companies. There aren't any massive warehouses and companies that employ thousands or even hundreds of people. What Fayetteville does have is the Fayette County school system, Piedmont Fayette Hospital, and Trilith Studios. Fayetteville is also close to the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, so it's a great place to live for people who work at the airport or those who travel a lot for work. It also does not take that long to get to downtown Atlanta. When you live on the north side of Atlanta, you may live closer to the city, but I wager that it takes you just as long to get to downtown. The second reason not to move to Fayetteville is roundabouts. Now, the city, in its infinite wisdom, has added several roundabouts to make traffic flow easier and more efficient. And you may be wondering what the problem is with that. Indeed. Now, my husband and I traveled through France a few years ago, and we hardly saw a traffic light. There were roundabouts everywhere, and it was glorious. The problem here in Fayetteville is that people just do not know how to handle these traffic circles. Maybe it's the Southern hospitality and general politeness. You go. No, you go. I think it's almost impossible for a Southern to understand that you do not stop and let someone go ahead of you when you're in a roundabout. So if you can't handle that, don't move here. Next is public transportation, or rather the lack of public transportation. One thing you will not find in Fayetteville: there are no buses, no trains, metros, or anything that will get you from point A to point B in a public setting. Here in Fayetteville, you are relying on cars. In Peachtree City, one town over, you have the advantage of being able to get around on golf carts. But that really is not an option here in Fayetteville. So if you are someone who relies on public transportation to get to work, you're out of luck. Fayetteville is not for you. And let's stay with the whole transportation, driving bit, because our next reason not to move to Fayetteville is driving in snow or ice. Yeah, it's not a good idea here in the South. Our winters are mild, which means that if we have a couple of snowflakes, the entire state shuts down. People do not know how to drive in the snow and ice, especially since we do not have a whole lot of salt trucks in the state, much less here in Fayetteville. And you may have heard of our snowmageddon that we had in 2014, when people got stuck on the highway for 24 hours. It was bad. Now, thankfully, that doesn't happen that often. And like I said, our winters are generally mild. There are days when we have 70-degree weather, and then the next day we have 40-degree weather. And you know what happens? It's our next reason: severe weather. When cold and warm air collide, severe weather is the result. And that happens at least once a year. Now, sometimes it's as benign as some nasty thunderstorms or even hail, but sometimes there's tornadoes. Just a few weeks ago, Griffin, just a little south of us, got hit by a tornado. A few years ago, it was Noonan. Now, these storms are devastating, destroy property and lives, and it's just heartbreaking to see. So if you move here to Fayetteville, be prepared for severe storms in late winter, early spring, when we don't know if it's going to be cold or warm from one day to the next. Now, once it stays a little bit warmer, we have another problem: pollen. If you are prone to allergies, you better stock up on some allergy medicine. Pollen is a real issue here. It's not uncommon to see everything covered by a yellow blanket. And don't open your windows too much in spring, because everything will be yellow. It's all due to the many pine trees we have. Those pine cones seem to grow about 1 inch a week, and they produce copious amounts of pollen. your car, the driveway, everything is coated in pollen. And of course, there's always some spring showers that wash it all away in rivers of yellow, but allergies can be bad. Sometimes I think the South single-handedly keeps the allergy medicine companies in business. And after pollen season comes the next reason not to move to Fayetteville, the heat. Not really, summers are brutal. They're sweltering, hot, humid. And that is from someone who lived in South Florida for 20 years. I was pregnant when my husband came to me and said, hey, I got a job offer, but it's in the Atlanta area. How do you feel about that? Well, I was 5 months pregnant and it was August and I was hot. So I said, yeah, let's go. Little did I know that the next August in Fayetteville, it was over 100 degrees every single day without ocean breezes. And now as a realtor, when I show houses in the summer, this is what I look like. So yes, it's not pretty. Be warned. Now the good part is that there's 3 other seasons that make up for it. And on to our next reason you may not like Fayetteville. There's no nightlife. If you are looking for a thriving nightlife, you are not going to find it here. Don't get me wrong, you can find fun places around the square with live music. There are craft breweries that have events and live music. There's an amphitheater that has a concert series. But if you are looking for a nightclub that stays open much after midnight, you'll have to head to Atlanta. Now, personally, I'm okay with that. My clubbing days are far behind me, but if that's a problem for you, you may want to move inside the perimeter or further north. And then we have the density. If you're thinking that moving to Fayetteville is like moving out into the country, you're wrong. And while the overall density is definitely much less than on the north side of Atlanta, less traffic, Fayetteville has definitely lost its rural character. And this is, of course, much to the chagrin of those residents that have lived here for decades and who think that Fayetteville is full. Now, personally, when I moved into the area 18 years ago, I had thought that I'd moved to the country. Coming from the concrete jungle in South Florida, I was not used to the land and the trees we have here. The city has grown over the last years, and while it's not the country, it is far from a concrete jungle, and I love it. But if you want a more rural character and really feel like you're out in the country, you need to move a little further south. And then we have diversity. I want to give you fair warning, Fayetteville is not a homogeneous society. So if you're looking to move to a town where everyone looks like you, do not move here. Fayetteville is a diverse melting pot. There are people from every walk of life, and that is how it should be. I love how my daughter has friends who live in a $1 million home and friends who live in a mobile home. She has friends who are Black, white, Hispanic, and Asian. The way she is growing up is preparing her for a life in the real world, and that to me is priceless. But again, if you do not value diversity, do not move to Fayetteville. So did I scare you away from Fayetteville, or are you ready to move here? If so, check out my relocation guide. The link is in the description. And if you need a little bit more persuasion, you might like the pros of living in Fayetteville as well, and you can find those in this video right here.